we last saw each other?
So what I've been doing is, I had a bunch of these ideas that were like half finished or half baked ideas before I took that class. And I think what I've been doing on and off since then is taking what I've learned there to sort of make them more finished. And then initially I was thinking, let me start sending stuff to labels, but then eventually I kind of went down the route of I don't remember who it was in our class, but she sort of mentioned a website where you can sort of, release stuff to every platform directly. And I figured I'd just do that because I kind of want to just get all of this stuff out of the way and then start doing new stuff.
So which platform did you go, or which website did you go to?
I think it was amuse.io. So they do pretty much everything for free, and then you can put it up onto most of the major platforms, I think.
Right. Have you done it yet, or is it something that's still?
I've done a couple of songs, and I've put up just 2 more that'll be released in like 3 weeks or so. So that's 4 that I've sort of gotten out of the way, and then what I wanted to sort of get feedback on was the 5th track.
So these 4 tracks that I have not heard.
No. So one of them is actually a track that I made while we were in the class.
Okay.
And that's the one that I brought back a couple of times, actually. The other 3, I don't think you've heard, because those are like older ideas that I hadn't sort of like figured out or finished completely. I can send those to you if you want.
All right. Do you have? Okay, so you sent me the link. I think I have the link here.
Yeah.
Somewhere. And what can you tell me about this track we're about to listen to?
So this, funny enough, this was like the first track I presented at a feedback session, even before I did class with you. So that was like much rougher than what is here today.
Right.
I'd say the difference maybe with this one is that the approach in terms of building it out was to focus on the percussion more than the melody and all of that. So you'll see that it's slightly different compared to maybe what you've heard before.
So this is the one called Quaver, is that right?
Yep.
Okay. And so it's different. So is it still dance floor?
It's still dance floor, but there's just like more happening percussion wise, I'd say, even though it's still sticking to like a 4x4.
Okay. Anything I need to know or be looking out for? Should I be looking out for anything in particular?
I would say I'm looking for thoughts on the structure and then some of the melodic elements, but maybe it's best if I don't say what and you just listen to it and see. Because I don't know, because it stands out to me because I've been seeing this for so long, so it'd be nice to get like a fresh opinion on it.
Okay. All right. Let's get to listening to that.
Cool.
As soon as I start playing it, let me know that you actually can hear it. So you can see my screen now with the SoundCloud link that you sent me. And just hitting play. And waiting for it to... No, it doesn't play. Well, interesting. Wow. It's resistant.
That's so random.
Maybe try to refresh the page.
I will. Let me just move this stuff over so I could get to the refresh part. Okay, let's try that. Sorry, Adi.
I've never seen that before.
Yes, sir.
With your consent, we'd like to use cookies. Maybe because they want me to use cookies. I'll try accept the cookies. No, even accepting the cookies, which I didn't really want to do.
Yeah, I also sent a link to like the WAV file on Google Drive. I don't know if that's.
I can get that to you.
Did you send me that? Yeah, that would be.
Not yet, but I will. I'll get that going right now.
Yeah, I sent that further down the line.
It's so weird. Maybe I could try it in another browser. Maybe that'd be the right move. I'm not sure. What browser did I use? This is let me see. I should have the mail here. It's this one here. And I'll just copy the link and look for my... Let's just go to and paste there. Clear up some of these windows. Did we get there? Let's see. It seems to be playing, but no sound. Awesome. Let's try it. Let me stop sharing and I'll try to share again. Now I can hear it, but apparently I can't hear it if I share my screen.
Interesting.
This is very strange. Strange glitches, which I never have. I do this every day and I do this every day and teach every day online, and I have no problem with this whatsoever. Let me try it one different way. In the meantime, hello, is it Anthony?
Yes, that's me. I'm here.
Hi, how's it going? I just wanted to acknowledge your presence.
I'm here. How are you?
I saw you were there. I just wanted to say hello.
Okay. Don't worry.
Let me
just send the wave over to if you wanted to try that one.
Yeah, okay. I'm just having a trouble with it actually piping through the
your computer audio.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I'm gonna try to hold on, guys. One last thing. I'm gonna try to get Ableton going somehow, and share that. And now with that, I'll try to go to the browser. Nothing. Yay. Well, that's convenient for everybody. Maybe what we could do, which is actually just as easy and works just as well, is we could have you share. You play it actually. You share your computer sound and play it. So you just share the screen, Adi, and then just when you click the share screen button, there'll be a pop-up, and then on the bottom left-hand corner, there'll be share computer sound.
Yep, got it.
Click that, and then play it.
Also might have to close this. Can you hear
There
that?
we go. Yep.
Cool.
All right. Solid track, really solid track from a lot of angles, meaning from the composition, arrangement wise, the elements together, the mixing even is very tight. I would say that you've really gotten a handle on it. I remember some of the stuff you would bring in and how it would be mixed. It was great. It was okay, but you've definitely upped your game when it comes to putting these mixes together. That's for sure, 100%. I'm actually very proud of you, my friend.
Thanks.
It's a great great track. A couple of things though I'd like to mention. Did you add anything to the master bus to treat the master?
Yeah, I believe it was sort of what we had touched upon earlier, right? So we're cutting off everything below 40. I've got a glue compressor in there. I've got a limiter in there. I think that might be it. I think that those are like the three main things that we sort of talked about, right?
Right.
So that's kind of what I've been doing.
Right. So it sounds great. The kick drum, one of the things to look out for, and I'm not sure that this is actually because it's so close to the kind of line here, what I'm about to say, that perhaps you've already checked this out and taken care of it. But if you haven't, I would do the following. Just make sure that the length of the tail of the kick drum actually ends before the next one begins, because it does have a bit of a decay to it that hangs around for a while. Just make sure that end actually, even if it's just a very short time, a couple of milliseconds, just comes to an end before the actual beginning of the next kick drum. So you could do that by just kind of looking at the WAV file. If you just export the kick, I don't know how you're making it. I suspect you're doing it with Ableton, but if you just export the kick and just have a look at what that curve is.
Right.
So just to see that it's not stepping on the toes of that next kick drum.
Okay.
That might be fine already, but if that's not the case, you could actually save yourself some clarity there. It'll get a little more defined in the bottom end. if you do that. Okay, so that's like the technical talk on it. I mean, hi-hats, everything, not very much sibilance to speak of, even though it's kind of bright, which is really nice. So beyond the technical stuff, here's what I'd like to see or hear. Now, I have a lot of experience in this type of these type of tracks. I like the fact that you use acid in there. Acid is, very much up my alley. And all the elements in the way that you've laid them out, very much in my wheelhouse, and very enjoyable. But one thing that I'd like to see that I don't think has happened is I'd like an anchor for my memory. Meaning, I'd like to be able to remember something about this track tomorrow. So imagine if you were at a club or at a bar and you're listening to this music, and it's playing with, like, dozens of others together, one after the other. How is the person supposed to remember that track happened? How are you supposed to mention it the next day to your friend? Remember that one track? Oh man, an easy thing would be a vocal sample, right? That would be an easier thing to kind of anchor mentally, right? But even just I would actually like to see the track get wilder, that it would go into some wild place that let's say at around the 2-minute mark, you would just get crazy with it, where people would be like, oh my God, what is that? That they would have to stop having their drink or having their conversation and just turn and maybe even look at what the DJ is doing and try to figure out who, or maybe Shazam it, like, what is this crazy track that I'm listening to now? So that the next day you can refer back to it. Because if not, you're just going to be one amongst a bunch of other very solid tracks in this style. This is very solid track. I would say I couldn't find anything wrong with it, technically speaking. I couldn't find anything wrong with the arc when it comes to, like, laying it out as a DJ tool or even an arrangement. But if you ask me, what would I do to make it better? I would go crazy with it. I would get a little wilder. I would just let it happen and let things happen that would, have that anchor in it. Now, I don't know how you feel about vocals, for example, but a lot of people don't like vocals in there. So if you don't, vocals would kind of be a easy solution for that, where people can remember vocals, more than they can remember rhythms of some sort, right? But if that's the case, if you don't want to go the vocal route, then you got to find some way to, like, make it memorable.
Okay, it sounds like some sort of hook to sort of
make it. It could be a hook. Okay. A hook, I don't know what you mean exactly by a hook. A hook is a kind of, repetitive kind of, usually a vocal or something. But yeah, let's call it a hook for whatever purpose. Something that's going to really feel like something that's going to make it stand out, against any others. Like, there's a lot of material out there. And you need to, if you're going to spend your time trying to get, this to have some traction, then you really need to kind of figure out a way to, like, get the traction that you want. And a little more of something wilder, meaning let the breakdown get crazy. Let it do something super unexpected suddenly. Something that's going to, like, freak somebody out. Like, what the heck? Like, this guy's a fool. What is he doing? Oh my God. That type of stuff will get you attention that way. If you want to stand out. And really what we're trying to do is stand out, because there's such a sea of artists. There's so many artists trying to stand out. And you gotta do something to do that. Other than that, the track is amazing. Like, the way it's laid out, technically speaking, it's super amazing. Cool. Do you have any comments or?
No, I think that makes sense. I guess, like, a lot of the baseline stuff that sort of kicks in before, like, the acid line was sort of done very like hurriedly, so I wasn't really sure about that part. I think it helps that it sort of like helps with the overall sort of like what you're talking about, the arc of the song, in terms of how it sort of builds from the initial like wobble coming in, and then you have the bass line and the acid line. Vocals are interesting. It's not something I've really tried out, and it might be something worth looking
And
into.
it doesn't have to happen, but whatever. What I'm saying is that with a vocal, it's a lot easier to have that anchor for
100%. Yeah.
For like just being able to recall your track.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think.
How should somebody want to go out and buy it, or even just listen to it again, or even talk about you as a producer?
Right.
They need to have this anchor, this kind of recall anchor, so that you could like get that sort of attention.
Right. Cool. That makes sense to me. Another thing that I was kind of unsure about, but I'm actually okay with, was sort of how, I guess like the build up that, until where, I guess like the drop or whatever, where the acid line sort of kicks out, which is somewhere around here, I'd say. Mm-hmm. There's about a minute if just the wobble sort of coming back in and then fading back out. To me, I think that's okay because of sort of what we've talked about previously, which is making sure there's enough room for a song to be mixed in and out.
Sure.
But I don't know, did you feel like that was too long, or was that something that stood out at all? I'm also okay. Cool.
Not look, this track, look, we could talk about arrangements these days, and it's a strange thing. Still, there are DJs and crowds and scenes that appreciate a longer track. But there's a growing number of scenes and DJs that are consuming tracks at a faster pace, meaning that 1.5 minutes could be your whole arrangement, which is crazy. That means you go straight into the meat of it. Like you go straight into the drop, not even an intro or anything. It's just get right to it, get your attention and get out, because a lot of DJs of that sort will only play your track for maybe a minute tops and then move on to the next thing. And because of that, you have to get everything you want to say done in that, in that minute. And then, so your tracks become, 2.5 minutes would be like, oh, is that too long? And you have a 5-minute plus track here, which is typical. And actually 15 years ago, this would have been a little on the short side. You'd have it closer to 6 minutes, right? Now it's like 5 minutes. That seems a bit long, and it seems like it's stretched out. But for certain scenes, it still is kind of desirable to have that. And I think it's mostly like the European techno kind of scene that appreciates that.
Yeah.
More the American EDM style stuff is a little more ADHD. It just keeps on moving that way. So.
Yeah, I definitely say this, like, at least in terms of what I'm listening to and how that impacts this, I'm definitely more clued in with the former than what's going on here. So that's probably why the structure is the way it is, and not, this isn't a 2-minute track. So, yeah.
Right. So great work altogether. Great track.
Cool. Thank you.
You must have a great teacher. All right. If you want to hang around, we might have some time later, maybe we could listen to another one of your productions if you'd like a little later. If not, you're free to leave.
No, I'll stick around. Yeah.
All right. So let's get to Anthony.
Hello.
Hello, Anthony. How are you?
Hello. How are you?
You sound a bit distorted, like very, 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 very crunchy in the level. But it's okay. We could deal with it. How are you doing?
Fine.
So you provided a track again. The same situation is probably going to be my situation, where probably going to have a hard time playing it. Can you play it from your end?
Yeah. Yes.
Or if you want, we could have Thomas try to play it from his side. I think that might maybe work. You know what I think it is? Last night before I went to sleep, I did yesterday after the last class that I had, Zoom asked me if I wanted to do an update. I did the update to the new Zoom, and
yes,
ever since then, it's the only thing that I could think of that was any different for the sharing.
I will play, or Thomas, you play. Thomas, you play.
Thomas,
Somebody's playing now, or is that just me? Oh, I think it's just me. So I have it pulled up. I have it pulled up, and I'll play it if that's cool with everybody.
Yeah, please do.
Yes, okay, of course.
Okay, cool.
So before Thomas does, can you tell us a little bit about your production and what you're doing? And
yes, I'm electronic music and techno, and house music. I do a good genres of music. I work in Ableton, and I like Ableton so much. So I needed to bring my career more special in Ableton.
Right. Where are you located?
I'm from Lebanon.
Are you in Lebanon right now?
Yes.
All right. I was there. When was it that I was there? I was there in the early 2000, no, mid 2000, late 2000s. I was there.
Yes. It's good country. It's good country.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. A lot of very crazy action.
Yes.
I played at this club called The Basement.
Yes, of course.
Basement? Yeah, The Basement for a guy named Jad.
Jad Mazwood.
Yeah. And then I did also at Ableton 1 week kind of seminar.
Nice.
There. So the week we did the seminar, and then at the weekend at the end we had the party at The Basement.
Yes, it's country of pubs and dance music.
Yes, a lot of partying.
Yes.
Partying like no tomorrow.
Crazy people.
Yeah. Right on. Okay, so anything else you need to tell us before we listen?
Just listen to my track and give me your feedback.
Okay. Sounds great.
Can you guys see this? Oh,
yep.
It is here. All right, let me know if you're able to hear everything okay.
right, great sound. Let's talk about it. Let's take it first again from the technical aspect of it, and then we'll talk about other parts of it. So technically speaking, I find that the most of the when I listen to tracks to evaluate them for technical problems in them, usually one of the biggest areas I'm looking for is sibilance, where the harsh frequencies or resonant frequencies. Also for overall balance in the levels. This these parts of that you kind of meet those requirements, except for I would say one area where and we could talk about this because it could be a preference thing. It could be very much a lot of what I'm saying is opinion. Feedback is basically opinion, and maybe it could open up a discussion about things. But for example, I find the kick is a very nice kick, but it's a bit the pitch of the kick is a bit on the higher side, and it is closer to the some of the other elements that are also playing along with that. I could think and imagine that if you had a kick that was a bit lower, the same kick even, just a bit lower pitch on the kick, not much, maybe one or two semitones pitched down, that you would get a much more fuller sound from the mix. That it's really funny, but the kick in these type of tracks is the determinant factor for is the mix good or not. So you look at a mix, okay, you have balancing issues, and then you have resonance issues, which are like really harsh frequencies. Sometimes we get those between like 7 and 11 kilohertz, these very harsh frequencies. You don't have those problems, but this is what to look for. But then you have issues then with the kick being the number one thing that could make or break that mix. So a lot of the times, here's what my work will look like. I'll have a track that I start, and maybe I create a very nice kick that I'm falling in love with. Like I make this kick. This is an amazing kick. I love it. I maybe love the fact that I took the time and actually created it from scratch and did some very nice things to it. And then I build a track around it. I build a track to fit this kick. And once I'm 80-90% done writing the track, I'm listening to it, and I'm so invested emotionally in this kick, and I'm so wanting to keep this kick that I won't consider anything else but maybe trying to tweak the kick to make it fit everything else that I've written to it. And it has happened to me once or twice that for some reason I've ended up like just scrolling through some other kicks, random kicks that I didn't even consider for this track, and suddenly maybe on the first choice or even second choice or whatever, suddenly this kick comes to with all the rest of the material that just takes over and like completely becomes this it makes the mix of the track just explode, like in a way that I couldn't do it because I was so married to this one kick. So consider that the kick in these type of tracks could be, sometimes I say, as much as 50% of the mix. So experiment with some different kicks, I would say, and I think you would get varying different results as to how this track can present. But right now, with the kick's pitch being as high as it is, I don't know what I would say that the pitch of that kick is probably around 70 hertz, if I have to guess right now with the pitch. And I think you want a kick that's more around 50 hertz. The 50 hertz being the magic number for dance music for low end. Like if you talk to any drum and bass producer or any bass producer or trap producer, they know that the 50 hertz is that magic number, that if they hit that magic number, they're going to get this this perfect balance between low and not too low, because if you go lower than that, maybe it's hard for speakers to recreate that sound if you don't have the right sound system. But 50 hertz is just like that one sound that like makes those speakers shake at the club and in your car. And I bet you that kick, I would examine that kick by itself under a spectrum analyzer in Ableton and look at the frequency, and I bet you that frequency is a lot higher than 50 hertz. And if you pitch it closer to 50 hertz, I think the mix itself would just become a lot fuller sounding. Other than that, I really enjoy all the different parts that you have. But now let's get to the technical part. Again, everything I'm saying is an opinion. It's not, nothing has to be the law here. It's just an opinion and opening it up for discussion. Matter of fact, before I go on, is there anything you want to discuss about the mix or anything that I've said so far?
This is me. I make the mixage and mastering. I'm not mixing and mastering. I'm not a professional of mixing and mastering. I'm just begin.
Right.
Beginning.
Right. No problem with that. I'm happy that you're doing it. Just trying to give you some pointers as to how you can immediately make the track. I bet you if you just went and did what we talked about with the kick and just moved the pitch down to around that 50 hertz region, you would have a result that you would be like, oh my God, this is like, it would be leveling up so quickly to the next level. Other than that, the rest of the track, there's not that many issues that stand out as much as the kick to me at this point. But let's talk now about the arrangement. So in the arrangement, I find that you have good elements. You have great elements. However, you introduce the elements, and then you pull out an element. You let there be a space, and then introduce another element. Then pull it out, and then bring another element, and this continuously happens until the end of the mix, which, to begin with, is a good approach to try to get a good mix going. But I'd like you to think about the way you arrange tracks as in this particular type of style of track, as to what is happening on the dance floor. So on the dance floor, we need, and this is a dance floor track, correct?
Yes.
Right. So on the dance floor, we need, this is for primarily a DJ to play. So first we need to have the DJ be able to cue up the track. So it needs to start very simple, in a simple or with a very usable way. So it's not that you haven't started it that way, but I'm just kind of going through the paces of what should be happening in one of these arrangements. So it starts very simple, and it can go pretty simple for a good amount of time. I would say about 30 seconds of simple pattern is okay, with nothing adding on to it except for an element maybe every 8 bars. So every 8 bars. So maybe you start. Hey, what I mean by simple is that many tracks that are amazing tracks in this style start with just a kick drum for 8 bars. And that nobody's going to hate you for that. I'm not saying that you should do that right now, but I'm just trying to give you an idea of how simple it can be, right? So even just a kick drum for 8 bars, so that to give the DJ enough, something to latch onto and to like cue up, so that they can bring it in and start to mix it with the next thing. And then every 8 bars, include a small but interesting element, like a little bit of hi-hat, maybe a secondary hi-hat 8 bars after, or 4 bars after. Work in 4s and in 8s, right? You work in 4 and in 8s. And then about 30 seconds, then you should have the first very interesting element happen. But the action has to be, let's listen to what happens to your track. Thomas, can you play the track, say around 15 seconds? Let's hear it again from the beginning to about a little bit after. I'll let you know, a little bit after, like maybe 40 seconds, so the first 40 seconds of the track.
Gotcha.
All right, stop it there. So right now, already there's already a few elements that you could save. Now it doesn't mean it doesn't sound good right now. It sounds great, but you have to be conservative about using your elements, because you need to space them out through time to tell the story that you're going to tell. Mm-hmm. So there's a few elements in there that are playing nice, and the story is, but you could start the story a little simpler. Maybe there's 4 elements that I could hear in there. Maybe you could start it with 2 elements. And that would give you the space to like move on to 8 bars later to add one of those elements that come in from the beginning, and then always giving a feeling that it's moving forward and that energy is building up. So we're moving higher. It's always like you're moving higher and getting everybody to like go from moving a little bit like this to moving like this to finally raising their hands and jumping up and down in the air, right? Okay. So we start with a couple of elements. You could have taken one at least of those elements and left it out so that it could come in maybe 8 bars later. Okay, so it came in a little bit heavier than it had to be, just for conservative reasons. And all of this is opinion, by the way. None of this is the law. None of this is the law. It's just me talking about it, right? It's feedback, right? So let's play it. Go ahead, Thomas, and play that again from the beginning. Just listen to what we were talking about. There's kick drum, bass line, clap, hi-hat in there.
Yes.
And then the build-up came. Stop it, Thomas, for a second. So this little build-up element came, and it dropped, and then it continued the same way. So in these situations, when you dare to put a kind of a building element, then you mean that there's going to be a line with something's going to happen. So you would have been better off keeping a couple of those elements away, getting to that point where you made the come in, and then having the one of the other elements that were in the beginning then join you after that part. Now we have it's sounding pretty good with the 2 elements, let's say you start with, and then the kind of riser that you have in there comes, and then that comes in, and then the next 2 elements push over. Now we're feeling like, okay, momentum, it's coming, it's building. There's a feeling of of building happening. Continue from where we are, Thomas. All right, let's stop it right there. So you had a couple of conflicting sort of approaches. So you had the build-up come, then the elements came back, and then a few bars later came this new part, an excellent part. This new part comes in. Okay, maybe instead of having that come in there, maybe let those, let's say 4 or 8 bar blocks go, and then take the breakdown that you've had that happens right there, and use that as an opportunity to pull out the old elements and include now a new element. And let's call this the switcheroo. And I think the switcheroo is one of the biggest and best techniques for management of energy in one of these tracks, where something is happening and then suddenly something switches out to something else. Okay, you keep a couple of the original elements so it's not that crazy or too off-putting, but when you get to that point, those elements keep going with it or not, but you have the switcheroo is suddenly something goes out. What does that do? Well, that gives a nice little surprise on the dance floor, which keeps building interest and motivation towards going forward. And moving that also gives you a magic ticket, which is all those elements you had before, you get to have them again, to add them again to the continuing building of the energy. So it's all about how do I continue to make the fantasy of building energy, continual energy, keep going. So we start with an element, we had that riser, it got to that point, we added some more elements, and then we have the switcheroo into your new parts. And then now the new parts play, and then we're able to take some of those old parts and include them again, and then continue to build. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes, of course. And
so when looking at it from that perspective, then you can go say about 30 seconds, which is about the time that you did this, which is a good your instinct is good to do it this here. It's about 30 seconds you do this, then you go on getting back into the meat. Now you're into the meat of the song. Now you're into the, you're not in the intro anymore. You're in the kind of like, this is my track, everybody, this is it. You're moving forward to between a minute and a half to 2 minutes and a half where you have to do something surprising. I think I really believe, a big believer in adding it. Look, these tracks are little stories, and if you write a short story, you know that what's going to make that story worthwhile is going to be that surprise in the story. That's going to make you go, oh wow, I never saw that coming. That's amazing. That's that twist, that surprise twist is what we all need in a good story. If not, you're just telling a documentation of maybe it might be a boring story. A fiction story maybe is better because you can make a crazy, or sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. But regardless, you're telling a story here. So you have to think like a writer. You're starting, you're laying it out, you're building it up, you're building up the tension and the desire to know more about what's going on. You're getting it to a certain place, and around the right place, which is for us, we'll say around 1.5 to 2.5 minutes, somewhere in between that, you come with your surprise. And then you take the surprise to build and use that to build to the next level.
I have to take time and my surprise. And when I come in another step in music.
Well, yes. The thing is, I didn't hear the surprise in your track at any point. I heard a lot of switching out and then coming back and revisiting the parts of the earlier parts of the story. So I just heard a bit of switching out, but it was always kind of, there were little bit surprises there, but mostly especially after halfway point, it was more of revisiting the story as it started.
It's small surprises, not you like built in.
Right. So tell me, defend the make an argument for the track. I'm just giving you my opinion, and
yes, of course.
So please talk to me about it. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think about what we're talking about.
You like it?
Yes, I do like it. That's kind of simplistic to take, from the argument that I've been making to go straight to I like it. I like it, but I'd like to hear it be put together in a more usable way for a DJ, also for the way that the story is told. So, do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So the general elements are all great, but let's get a polished kind of rise in the telling of the story, so that the tension is built. It's all about building up tension and then releasing the tension, or maybe twisting at the top of the tension and giving you a release that you didn't even expect to have. It's really super related to writing actual text. It's the same. A lot of the same, all the same concepts or general concepts can go into telling this story. You're telling the story on the dance floor, and you're taking the listener through a journey, which will surprise them, and that will give them a satisfying feeling. And so, fix the kick drum, I'd say, or experiment with some lower kick drums. You might really like what happens there, and then just deal with the storytelling aspect of it.
You want the kick more lower.
Low end, yes. More just about, try go somewhere around 50 hertz.
Boom. It's more too much heavy, loud.
What the kick that you have? So you don't want to have it lower, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes, you do, or yes, you don't?
No, I don't.
You don't. You want it a higher pitch. Well, yes, then tell me. Explain to me what's going on. Tell me how this is beneficial. I accept everything. This is feedback can go both directions. We're just, what I'm doing here in this, what we call feedback sessions, is just offering you a way to think about it differently. I'm a believer in that thinking happens best when at least two people are going back and forth. when you think about something by yourself, usually what you're doing is criticizing your own work, right? So you have it, somebody else listen, give you feedback, and it gives you either validation for what you did, make sure your position stronger, or it makes you think about a different alternative. So tell me what your philosophy on it is.
I tell you, if my kicks need some
we need to change elements.
We need to change something. The music is good.
The music is good. I just think that it would be a more satisfying experience on the dance floor, sonically speaking, if the kick,
Yes.
if everything stayed the same and the kick got a little lower. Because it's hard to differentiate the kick from the rest of the material. Like from the kick and the bass line, it's hard to like make a difference between them. It's hard
Yes, of course.
It's hard to heat. Like, and once you get to understand where the kick is, then you know it, but it's not easy to make that distinction.
Yes.
So, but you tell me, what do you think? So, how far are you finished? Is it finished, or how far are you from finishing this track?
No, I'm finishing.
Okay, it's finished, or you are finishing it?
No, it's finished.
It's finished. Okay, then.
Yes.
So, I mean, if you like it, if it makes you happy, then we're done, right?
It's good, but I can work about it, Jan. More everything you tell me, I can take I can consider it more practice for me. It's practice for me.
Right. So maybe a remix. Maybe do it. You know, it's like take it as a remix. Keep the original version and try some new things in a alternate version to see what you think.
Can I do it in the remix?
Yeah, sure, of course. You leave the original. Don't change the original. If you like the original, just leave it like that for now. But then maybe take another try at mixing it a bit differently and trying different things with it to experiment with new things.
Can I ask you? You give courses online and?
Yes, we are actually a school that gives courses online. We have classes starting in all the time, both in Ableton.
Because I want to more techniques. I want to go and study more.
Right. We have actually that's what we do around here. Thomas can help you out. Thomas is the young man sitting there.
Thank you, Thomas.
He can.
What I'll do, Anthony, is I can email you, because I have your email, some more details about the courses. Maybe like a mixing course would benefit you, or maybe some of the Ableton courses as well. So I can send you some links so you can see all the details on those.
Okay. Thank you.
But thank you for your submission. That was really very, very, very nice of you to join us today.
Your feedback is great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Helpful.
All right. So, Thomas, should we try your track, or should we do another one of Adi's tracks?
It's completely up to you guys. I mean, I'm up for whatever, really. We've got some time here, so.
You should do your track first.
All right, let's do mine quick. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think there'll be all too much. To preface it, I just I'm pretty. It's kind of just like an instrumental hip hop kind of thing. I'm pretty happy with the arrangement. Otherwise, the mix is still pretty rough. I was pretty happy with the way the mix was sounding, but then as soon as it got onto SoundCloud, I was like, oh boy, this sounds different, which I know isn't super surprising, but from Abe, I was maybe looking for advice on to kind of retain. I felt like the mix was sounding pretty tight. And then when I went online with the SoundCloud, it kind of started getting a little more muddy, like the hi-hats and stuff were sounding thinner, and the bass maybe was kind of feeling a little overcompressed. But I'll let you guys listen, and then I'm looking for basically any feedback. Like I said, it's kind of a bare bones instrumental right now, so see what you guys think. Let me know if you're able to hear it all right.
Sweet. Excellent.
Thanks, man.
So I know this is a beat, which
Yes.
means that arrangement isn't something that would be too, productive to talk about, right? Because you're just trying to set it up to, to listen to, and then maybe for a rapper to jump on it. Am I right about that?
It's really could go either way. I mean, I think that it kind of has a minimalistic kind of vibe. So I wouldn't be opposed to for it living on its own as an instrumental, but I think maybe it would be well suited with some vocals of some sort, but
Well, you said so, but in the state that it's in right now, it is kind of a state which has a couple of ways that it can go, right? We
definitely.
Either with somebody jumping on it and rapping on it or singing on it, or as a kind of its own thing. So if and for the fact that it's perfectly laid out for a a rapper or somebody to jump on it, because it leaves room for a vocalist to come in and do their thing. It definitely leaves room for a vocalist, or even you can imagine a guitarist jumping on this and doing and going. But there's plenty of room for that to happen, which is great. This is that's exactly what you want when you play this for somebody, because maybe you're looking for that type of situation to materialize. But if you were to think about like just having it stand alone, then you might have to consider adding something on top of it to fill in that kind of void that is left there purposefully right now. So I guess all of this stuff that I'm telling you, you probably know. So it's nothing.
Yeah. Would you say like a lead or something would be something that would be in the cards, or?
Sure. I mean, it could even, look, it is very enjoyable to listen to right now. It is super pleasant, and it's super nice. It's memorable. It has a full on, everything has been considered. However, there's still a little bit of room left for, let's call it a lead or a vocalist to jump on. If there was a lead doing something across the whole thing, then the vocalist would be hard. It would be hard for them to imagine like where to jump on, right? So because of that, you kind of have to leave that kind of open still.
Yeah.
And it's still open enough that a vocalist jumping on this would be sweet. But if the vocalist never jumped on, then there's definitely room for something to. But it goes with these beats that way. You almost have to like stop here and then wait to see what's going to happen. Meaning, did I find a rapper or a singer to jump on, or another type of instrumentalist to jump on this thing? And finally, if I didn't, then I need to finally put it out as a collection of like, beats or whatever. Well, then at that point, you might want to come up with a little bit, just maybe it could be just a little more of something to like, fill in that place where the rapper might have been.
Gotcha.
Something like that. But arrangement wise, we got to kind of leave it like that for now. I think that it's still to be determined, right?
Yep, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so let's talk about the mix a little bit. Now, I know what you like in your mixes, and I know that you like the low end. I think that you could go a little more crazy with the low end.
Okay.
Meaning you could even take a chance that it might get a bit distorted. But because it might be, for this genre, it's not a bad thing. Gotcha. So I think you can get a little deeper if you want with the low end. And so exploring something like some EQ like Poltec style or something like that might be a little bit in your interest. One thing though, I find the snare to be a bit on the resonant side of things. So it's not sibilance, because it's not up there with the sibilances, but there's a resonance in that snare that's a little bit harsh. It hurts just a little bit. So if you could, I bet you if you just go with an EQ and just do a little sweep around where the snare is, you'll find that harsher frequency, and then you'll be able to EQ it out or compress it out a little bit if you have access to like a dynamic EQ. That would be, but in my setup here, everything sounds great. I mean, it does sound really good. I mean, I'm almost nitpicking here just to find something to talk about. But I really do believe the snare could be relieved of that resonance.
Gotcha. Would you think going for a different sample would be?
No, not necessarily so. Not for a snare. You mean the snare sample?
Yeah.
No. It's just taking the resonance off of the sample that's there.
Okay.
It's a little bit resonant in the wrong place. Gotcha. And I mean, if you relieve that snare snaps. The reason you chose it really does cut through. It really does. But I think it could still cut through and not have that resonance in there that it does have. So just find that resonance, pull it out. Maybe even brighten up the highs a little bit in the track as well.
Yep.
On the hi-hat elements, but I don't know how lo-fi you're going for. So it is chunky, so that's a good thing. But my biggest thing is that you could have more low end, just just to get to destroy somebody's speakers, and you could get that resonance out of that snare.
Okay, cool.
Other than that, it's brilliant.
Thanks,
Brilliant
man.
track.
Cool. Yeah, no, I'm kind of like trying to get into like I mean, this genre, what you see in a lot of it, and you have experience with some of your prior students and stuff, but you see a lot of stuff that's really like thin and really clipping, and it's the mix is like really pushed a lot. And I'm trying to take like a more simplistic approach, not including too many elements and just trying to keep cleaner sounds, but it's not that I don't like the dirtiness that you get from like these other songs, but I think you have to be careful with how you kind of implement those elements, because some of my friends who make similar style of music, a lot of it I just start listening to and it all feels like it's just being pushed too hard, like the whole master or whatever it is,
Hey, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it 100%. With that said, let's say that I'm generally not making mixes of this sort where, even though sometimes I'm working with people that want to have these very, very distorted clipping mixes and sounds in the mix, and I understand the value of it. That's not my cup of tea personally. So I totally get it. But even with that said, I just even keeping it in the non-clipping world and keeping it in the kind of not going crazy over the top, there is a little room still for low end to be there.
Yep.
Without actually making it to the clipping part of it.
Yeah, I like that feedback a lot. I'll definitely experiment with that, because like you said, if there's room for the bass to be hitting hard in a track like this, it's definitely what you kind of want.
Have you run it through something like a Pultec or?
I think the only thing I really put it through the bass right now was like a decapitator or something, some sort of compressor.
Right, and that's good. And that's going to actually do the opposite of what I'm talking about.
Gotcha.
So the decapitator is a saturator, and that's going to add harmonics that will make it cut through in smaller speakers. But the type of bottom that I'm talking about doesn't come from that. Type of bottom that I'm talking about comes from adding in very low, very like the low frequency but compressed audio, layered into what you have there. So taking the low, you don't need a Pultec. You could do it with like a, just take if you're using Ableton, you could take a layer, make another layer of the track in an audio effect rack. Just make another chain, and then the second chain, just roll everything, off on the top, and just leave the bottom in there, just like the sub in there. Everything stay under like 200 hertz, gets to stay in there, and then add some serious compression to that, really low part of the mix, and then take that low part of the mix and blend it in with your original sound a bit. And blending that in is gonna it's parallel. It's parallel EQing and compression at the same time is what it is.
Gotcha.
And that'll give this bottom to it that's going to be destroying your friend's speakers, even if it's not clipping.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I really like it. I appreciate that. Definitely give it a try.
All right, Adi, do you have another one?
Sure. Yeah, Thomas, I really like that. So I know there's like a vocal sample in there for bits and pieces. Is that from a sample pack or
I think most of the samples are from Splice. So
okay.
Just kind of, you have different packs and stuff in there. It's pretty common in the genre to find like that,
That's something I have to figure out, just like vocals in general. So that's
I noticed just adding like little elements like that. Like I don't think I had those in there originally starting the beat, but it just adds like a little bit of life, that especially when there's no vocals on this track to begin with, give it a little more interest, a little ear candy.
Yeah, I also like the knocking that was sort of like offbeat every now and then, which was like, it felt more organic, which was kind of nice.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Cool. So this is one of the songs that I've set up to release. It's pretty much complete, but I mean, if there is feedback that makes sense, I'm more than happy to just like delete the release and make edits to it again. It's sort of in the vein of like industrial techno-ish, so it's maybe not as polished, but I think that's part of So that's the kind of vibe you'll see with the song. So I'll just get into it.
So let me just go from the straight to the, well, we always start with the technical aspect of it. And I think my issues are going to be more around the technical aspect of it than anything else. I think this mix, I'm more sure about what I had suggested to you in the last mix is going on in this mix, which is that the kick drums decay is so long that that it's stepping over the next kick drum. So there's just this block of low frequency in the bottom that is swallowing up everybody, including itself, and it's working against you. A lot of, I think there are more muddiness issues in this track than there was in the last track you played me, and I think it's because maybe that track is a bit better than this one when it comes to that. But it seems that, you know, if you have a kick drum, this is the one bar, this is the next beat. And if you have a kick drum that lasts for as long as the bar is, or even worse, even longer than the bar is, and then another kick drum comes in where that one can't what happens is that, imagine you have a cone, a speaker, it's pushing out air, right? Every time the electrical impulse tells it to push out air. It's pushing out air. Now imagine it pushing out air, but it can't really, has to keep on pushing air before it recoils and pushes out air again. There's no place for this kind of dramatic action to happen where you're boo and then you're like kind of on top of itself. So there really isn't that line that, it's like, you know, exercising without actually properly breathing. It's about breathing, really. So it's not allowing for any breathing to happen in there. And you do have to let your elements breathe, especially the low end. Now, it could be that you're just a little bit before the kick it's ending. I mean, before the next beat is ending. But regardless, I feel that it's just a little too long for its own good. If you, and I'm talking about just a little bit, just a tiny little bit goes a long way with this. I mean, shaving off a couple of milliseconds at the end of it, just a shave, where you could actually see that there's just a small area where there's nothing happening, can improve dramatically what's going on there, what goes on in there. You could do that with a tool like Shaperbox, or even just a decay of the device you're using to get that going. But that little relief just at the end of that is going to then let not only the kick play better, but all the other elements now will have a easier time kind of presenting themselves and showing themselves to you. What you'll even find is that when you do that, when you let let there be a little bit of space between the end of the kick and the beginning of the next beat, is that you'll have the kick itself can actually be made louder. Like you could actually raise the volume more of it, which becomes even more present, but still has that room to breathe. So there's more kick, there's actually more impact on the bottom, but than you're getting right now, more bang for your buck, really. But because you didn't let it breathe before, you kind of squandered that opportunity. Letting it breathe a little bit will actually even let you get it even louder, and everything to still kind of present nicely in there. So just go have a look at what's going on down there.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I honestly don't remember what this looks like in the DAW, so I'll have to look at it. But I think, this might have been one of those cases where I've actually used an audio file for the kick.
Mm-hmm.
So I might have to look into that.
So if you use an audio file for the kick, you don't, it's not measured to the length of that. It's not like it's, so it may be a little long, depending on your BPM. Like that kick might have been made for hip hop, right?
Right.
Where the BPM is slower, and you know, boom, gets to finish, and then another one, boom. But when you're like boom, 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 you always have to continue to recharge, and you don't get to like pull back to do that. You're just out there, boom, 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 boom. And just a little bit of recharging gets to happen. And in the meantime, the kick loses definition, and the rest of the stuff gets swallowed up in the mix.
Right. That makes sense. I'll look into that because I feel like a lot of the tracks there have like a couple of like saturators and a little bit of overdrive here and there, so that also could be why stuff is getting lost. So I'll look into that, I think.
Yes, maybe that is true, but
Yeah.
if I was working on this track, that's the first place I would check, because it sounds very much like there's no space for that kick to recharge.
Right.
It just sounds like it's going all the way to either just to the very end or way past, a little bit past the kick, where it's just playing on top of itself, which is the worst. That's the worst case scenario. But have a look, and even if it's cut off just a little bit before the end, maybe experiment with bringing it just a little back before that, because I guarantee you, no matter how much, if it's up on it or over it or even a little bit before it, pulling back just a little more is going to help that kick. I know it for a fact. I could bet money on it right now.
Cool.
All right. Do you have any other questions or comments about this track, or something that you want to discuss with me about it?
No, I mean that's an interesting. I guess that's something that I haven't looked at for this, and obviously the other track, so I can do that.
Yeah, I thought also that kind of like background, like low stringy part was kind of buried in there, partly because of the kick problem, but also because it was just a little buried. I don't know if that's meant to be like that, but
yeah, I think maybe I don't know. I'd say there's like two ways where like I like it as almost sort of like something that's bedded in, almost like this weird ambience that's happening in the background of the track. But I don't necessarily think that means that it can't sort of be brought out a little bit more with the kick. I haven't tried that out, right? So maybe I just do that and see what that looks like.
Yeah, start there and see what happens after that. All right. Does anybody have any other tracks or comments or questions to go through at this point?
I had one quick question, Abe, about kind of related to this last part with, like, when you're mixing, how important is reference tracks to you? There's been some talk like around the school and that, and I was just curious to get your opinion on that quick.
Well, reference tracks are very important, especially if you're not sure about how what you're listening to and is presenting to you, and if it's correctly presenting to you the way that it should be. What I mean by that, well, you're in a studio that you've just started working in with a great sound system, but you don't understand what means what. So now you take a track that you know, that you've tested over a different sound system, heard at the party, heard at this festival. You know this is a solid production. You take that and you bring that to into that sound system. You listen to it, and now you can juxtapose. Now you can set up a contrast scenario where you can see what one is doing versus the other, and it's a super tool at that point. When you might not need it is maybe when, in the case that I've been working in this place since the 90s, I've been doing stuff in this studio. So the way that this is set up right now, I kind of know really intimately, like I know all the intricacies of all the sounds that come at me from in this studio. So it's less necessary for me to reference things to a reference track because of that. But if I was working for you or for any of you and working in here, I still would need a reference track to know what you're talking about. I want my mix to sound like this. There's no such thing as a perfect mix. And perfect mixes are in people's heads. And what people want out of mixes are in people's heads. And you have to, if you want to get that going, if you want to get into somebody's head, the best way to do that is to listen to what they think the ideal for this, for their track is, what the standard is, where the bar lies.
Definitely.
So that's what I think about reference tracks. I think that's super important, especially when you're working for somebody else.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, I think.
But you can relax on it if you're very secure about your sound system, and you know that you're or if you're trying to experiment and develop a sound that that there's no reference track for. Mm-hmm. So if you're like an experimental artist and you're trying to do something nobody's done before, how can you use a reference track for that, right?
Yep. Gotcha. Very cool.
You go. All right, I guess that's it for today.
Yeah, I think that does it. Abe, thank you so much for coming by.
Thanks,
this
Abe.
week. Yeah,
you're a
feedback master at this point.
Thank you.
All right, guys, have a good evening, a good day, or whatever it is for you guys. And
bye. Thank you.
See you guys soon. Maybe come and take a class with us. And come back, Adi. Come back, Adi. Take some mastering class.
When I'm ready, I guess. Yeah.
All right.
All right. Take care.
Take it easy.
Bye.